Good morning, everyone. My name is Melissa Townsend. I am the Honorary Secretary of the JIE. Welcome to the JIE Developers Forum series, where we aim to enhance the knowledge of our participants on the permits, policies, and standards for planning and executing development and infrastructure projects appropriately and successfully. Today, we are in segment 2, where we will discuss the development application process for potable water, sewage, and subdivisions with engineer Ian Bennett. Now I'll allow our budding engineer, Janelle Crawford, to introduce engineer Bennett.
Good morning, Melissa and everyone, and thank you. Mr. Ian Bennett is a mechanical engineer with over 26 years of experience in the public water sector, working with the National Water Commission. He has a master's degree in mechanical engineering and a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. He specializes in water and sewerage engineering designs, focusing on system design and optimization using hydraulic modeling to provide optimal potable water supply and sewage disposal services at the NWC. He has comprehensive knowledge in the use of the water gems, sewer gems, and ArcGIS software programs. He has personally completed over 62 designs, successfully manages a portfolio of over 340 design projects, along with rationalizing and modernizing the development process for the NWC as the manager in the engineering design unit. Now I will allow Mr. Bennett to share his presentation with us this morning.
Good morning, everybody. I trust that you're having an excellent morning. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, good morning. Yes, I am Ian Bennett, and it's good to be here this morning to share some information with you so that you will be able to understand a little bit more about the development process in the National Water Commission. So the topic of my presentation is Water, Sewage, Subdivision Applications, a Developer's Guide. Okay, so what is the National Water Commission's role when it comes to different providing water and sewage services? What is the National Water Commission's role? Okay, we are premier potable water providers of that service. We're also premier sewage conveyance and sewer disposal providers of sewage disposal services. This is what we primarily do at this time. Now, what else is our role as the National Water Commission? What do we do? The NWC provides comments to various organizations, developers, and entities. And strictly speaking, the NWC is no longer a regulator in the utility sector. Okay, the NWC also delivers the services that it endorses. Okay, now, what are some of the things that the NWC requires of submissions that come to us? For us to be quite efficient in how we provide our comments and our responses to various applicants, we expect high quality submissions that makes the evaluation of these applications much easier. We also expect site plans by a commissioned land surveyor, and we also expect good engineering reports stamped and signed by the respective engineer in that particular discipline. So when you do these things, it really does help to make the evaluation process easier. We also require suitable location maps and drawings, especially when it comes to where is your development located. Various persons begin to tell me, well, it's when you pass the street over there and go around the corner and you come to Mr. John's shop, it's the second house on the left. Well, yes, that's good for someone who is actually in the ground, on the field, and is looking for the property. But for us, when we're looking island-wide at different submissions, we really do need a map, some kind of a map showing where your property is located. Okay? NWC's requirements. The NWC needs your intended water demand to avoid ambiguity. Now, if you tell me you're subdividing 50-acre plot into 2 lots, 25 and 25. Yes, it's only 2 lots you're subdividing into, but 25 acres is a lot of property to say you just want a single domestic water supply. Tell us what it is that you intend to do. Tell us what it is that you ultimately wish to do with that particular property. Submit your checklist to us. What is it that you have submitted? You have submitted the plans, you have submitted the engineering report, you have submitted the drawings, you have submitted the location map, you have submitted the fire brigade location, the fire brigade approval. So check it out, submit it to us. Provide suitable contact information. Very often persons write to us and all we see on the letter is a name. No address, no contact, no email, nothing. So it makes it very difficult for us to respond to you when we are ready to respond. So we need the name of the responsible officer, the address of that responsible officer, an email address, as well as a telephone, because that makes it easier for us to communicate with you electronically, especially with the email and a WhatsApp number. Email in particular lets it be much easier to communicate with you. Now, what are some of the issues? Oh boy, we have so many issues with the NWC, and you have so many issues with us. But what are some of the issues which do impede us giving our comments at the appointed time in the development process? One of the issues that we face very often is persons who are building service lot developments, where you simply build the service lots, you install the pipelines, but there are no houses there. And then the National Water Commission says to you, you need 60% occupancy before we will take over that development. And you might say, why? That is being unreasonable. That's not being very reasonable to us. Why do you need that? Well, here are some of the reasons. Implications of poor occupancy. Water in the pipeline becomes old. Whenever we release water into your particular service lot, no houses are there. And if it sits there for a year, 2 years, 3 years before anybody comes and begins to use that particular water supply, then the water tends to degrade. The quality of the water tends to degrade, depending on what has happened in that particular service lot. We can introduce, different kinds of bacteria, different kinds of fungal growth can begin to occur in that system, and it can become of poor quality. Also, when you have low occupancy, very low occupancy, there's poor movement of the sewage through the pipes. There's not enough water to move the solid stuff through the pipes. When that happens, that solid stuff will sit there and get hard. Okay? The next thing is security of the infrastructure. If nobody lives there, somebody will take the infrastructure. They'll take the hydrants, they'll take the pipes, they'll take the pumps, they'll take whatever it is that they can find. So whenever persons live within the community, it really does add to the security of the infrastructure. What are some of the other issues that we are having that you have with us also? Bulk meter, 1 meter versus a meter bank. What's the implication of this? The NWC does not guarantee pressures to deliver water above the 2nd level. So if you have 1 level on the ground and a 2nd level above it, we're saying if you go to a 3rd level, then the NWC does not guarantee water to that level unless you install some secondary pumping equipment. Tanks and pumps are required to deliver services to the 3rd level and beyond. Where this is impractical, a single bulk meter is installed. 1 meter, as seen in the picture, is installed. Now, I suggest to many persons when they're installing these meter banks that you have to be very prudent. You can't just install them and not think of how you're going to operate the system, how you're going to maintain the system. In fact, it was just yesterday, I was looking at a particular installation, and the way how they have installed those bank of pipes inside that little room, I say, how does somebody walk through the room, much less to maintain a particular pipe if it were to burst? How do you walk over that maze of pipes so that you're able to repair that particular one? You should be able to arrange it in such a way. Sometimes you might have to depress the floor where the pipes run so that, and put gratings over it. Little things like that, that will help you to walk, inspect, and repair those pipes if it becomes necessary. What are some of the other issues involved with regard to bulk meters and meter banks? There are legal implications for the NWC where meters are located. Everything behind the meter, before the meter, is really NWC's responsibility. Now, if we're going into a community, which is a gated community, where we can't just go in and throw a backhoe in there and dig up the place just to repair a leaky pipe. So those kinds of implications we tend to really ask persons to send us what it is that you intend to do within that development so that we can begin to look to ensure that there are no legal ramifications for the NWC, especially when it comes to repairs and maintenance. We also look for double billing. Sometimes double billing becomes an issue where you're trying to feed water to a particular tank, but then you feed water through a bulk meter, then you feed water through a second tank, then you run it back around through the system, back through the customer meters, and strange things happen with regard to double billing, and double billing poses legal implications for us when it comes to calculating people's bills and their consumption, okay? What are some of the other issues? Detailed designs. Many persons, when they submit their applications to us, just show the pipes by a line. They give some level of detail, but we do request detailed designs. Are you putting flange fittings? Are you putting socket joints? Are you putting Victolic couplings? Are you putting, what are you putting in there? What is it that you're doing? Because what that will do, it will help the Water Commission to understand how do you intend to do your infrastructure. These detailed designs must be submitted to the National Water Commission after we give our endorsement of your plans and before construction commences. That's very important because sometimes we have found in the past where we have gone into the field to do inspections, and when we see them doing the construction in the field or the type of material they intend to use, we have to say, no, we will not accept this at this particular place. So it's very important that you give us your detailed designs. Why? The NWC must agree with the material and construction techniques that you intend to use. Detailed designs avoids delays during construction as the NWC inspects the infrastructure. What else? What else? Detailed designs facilitate smooth testing and takeover. If we begin to understand what it is that you intend to do, and we agree with what you intend to do, and then as we do inspections and we do our interim testing, and we agree with you early along the way as you do your construction, then certainly when it comes to the final testing and the final takeover of your infrastructure, we will be in agreement. Therefore, the process will really be much smoother than if we, suppose, give an instance. A particular developer decides to put 300 PSI on a 150 PSI PVC pipe. He didn't tell us. We asked him. We said, what do you intend to put? He says, we intend to put ductile iron pipes. But then he puts in PVC. That can become problematic. So please, when you tell us what you intend to do, please stick to the plans. Sometimes developers submit to us what they intend to do. This is what we intend to build. But then later on you hear that I did not see the final plans which were submitted. Developers, it's very important that you understand if you submit it to us, we're going to ask you to install it. If you make a change, we're going to ask you to give us the updated plans so that we can see the changes that you have made. Okay? What are some of the other issues when it comes to detailed designs? Detailed designs submitted to us on time in the right way avoids negative impact on NWC's operations and maintenance. You might say, how? How does this work? If it is that you're putting in, for instance, you have a large bend and it's at a particular location, pumping station, for instance, and you're putting in anchor blocks there, and it's a huge anchor block. The first day we have to do repair to any part of that infrastructure might dictate that we destroy that anchor block. So we may suggest to you that you use couplings which can take restraint joints, which are couplings which can take thrust, so that it's easy to disassemble and reassemble that particular fitting if repairs have to be done. Also, some developers may decide to put in bends, for instance, but they're just ordinary socket joint bends without any restraints. And certainly as you begin to test those systems, they will fail. And that can cause problems for us later on when we take over the infrastructure. Some of the other issues, wow, let's look at the money. When it comes to impact fees, many persons say, what are impact fees? Well, impact fees, before I say anything on impact fees, every developer everywhere is required to provide a cogent plan of his development from the water right down to the sewage. along with everything in between, which includes the road, the buildings, the electricity, the everything else, the structure of everything that you're doing, the landscaping. That is the developer's responsibility. How we interface with you is when we say to you, we have a particular service that is close to your development. If we have a service close to your development, then we can simply connect you. If we do not have any particular service which is close to you, then we will say to you, hey, there's some upgrades which are required. If it is that you have to make some upgrades, then it is the developer's responsibility to handle it. If those upgrades will benefit several persons or the entire community along the way, then the NWC will participate in that upgrade process, and the developer will then make a partial contribution, his proportional contribution to the development of that infrastructure. Each developer pays his proportionate cost of the infrastructure, and these fees are payable before the connection of the development. Please, it is very important because it really does help to make the entire process much smoother. Now, what are some of the things we intend to do to improve the development process? Our developer's manual. What we want to do, when I looked at our developer's manual, there are some things in it which are outdated, and we need to upgrade it and publish it so that you all can have what our expectations are upfront as a manual. We also need to make it available online. We're in the process of upgrading that manual now, and we really, really hope to get it out before the end of the year. And that's not the financial year, that's the calendar year. So we really do hope that we can get it out so that you can have a copy to reference when you're doing your development. The manual will include additional and more suitable standards and more recent technologies, especially when it comes to wastewater treatment technologies. What is it that we will accept now as opposed to what it is that we accepted in the past? We want to update those things so that you have them up front. Some of the improvements, we want to interface with and upload NWC's comments on the application management and data automation software. That's the Amanda software and the associated network. What that would allow us to do is to upload our comments there so that once you make your applications through NEPR and the Parish Council, you'll be able to begin to see where it is and what has NWC said about it. That would certainly make the comments available to you, another avenue for you to see where you are with regard to the NWC as well as the other agencies, and that would help to make the whole approval process a little smoother. Now, what are some of the development trends that we have been seeing over the years? This only goes up to 2021. I have some new trends for 2022. But they're pretty much aligned with 2021. When you look at the number of lots that we have received in terms of development applications, they have been ranging in the 30,000, every year, approximately. That's what we receive as applications. That's the average. It went down a little bit in 2013 to 2017, but it has gone back up to the range of the 30,000 per year. What have we approved or endorsed out of it? We have endorsed approximately half of that. We have responded to 80% of all our applications, but we have actually given our endorsement of only about half, which is about 15,000 of that 30,000 lots. Let's look at some more trends. When you look at the number of applications received per year, we're trending to an average of about 800 applications annually. In 2022, it's about the same. 2023, looking at where we are so far, we may, if it continues at this trend, exceed 1,000, but let us see how the year pans out. But we receive about, 800 applications per year. What have we endorsed? Of course, we've endorsed about half of that, okay, which is about 400. Looking at some more development trends. Looking at all of the applications, how much water in imperial gallons per day in terms of applications do we receive? We receive about applications amounting to 8 million gallons per year. That's what we have received into our organization. What have we approved? About half of that, which is in the range of about 4 million gallons. It's trending up somewhat in 2021, 2022, 2022 is about the same upward trend. So it's a little bit higher, going into the range of, 4.5 million per year. That's what the trend appears to be so far. Looking at that Jamaica map, the greens tend to represent what we have endorsed in a global way, and the reds tend to be what we have not endorsed. If you look at it, you see that we have done quite a bit of endorsement for Kingston and St. Andrew, for Spanish Town, a bit for that's Old Harbor, some of it for Clarendon. We have begun to endorse more in Mandeville, as we are looking to accelerate the upgrade of the Mandeville water supply system. We have done a bit of endorsement of subdivisions in St. Elizabeth, in Hanover, Westmoreland, of course in Montego Bay. Going around along the north coast, we have done quite a bit of endorsement of applications along the entire north coast. In the central part, there in the central part of St. Anne, not too much has been done. And of course, around the coastline of St. Thomas and Portland, we have endorsed quite a few developments in those areas. Okay. And that is my presentation for the morning. Do you have any questions? How can I help you to make the whole process a little better? Any questions?
Thank you so much, Mr. Bennett, for that presentation. There are actually a few questions here for you. One person is asking, does occupancy mean that people are actually inhabiting units in the development, or simply that 60% of the units were sold in the development?
We call it inhabited, because if they're sold and nobody's living there, it's the same thing. We need the water in the system so that it can move the potable water through the pipes, so that fresh water will replace the old water. And we need, if in case of sewage systems, we need the water to flush the sewage out of the pipes, sufficient water to flush the sewage out of the pipes. So it's not just people living there. It's not just people having houses there and selling there, but we need the occupancy, people physically living there. Okay.
Okay, thank you. We have another, well, from before. When a developer has interest in connecting to the main sewer lines, what percentage of the cost is subsidized by the NWC, if any at all?
The sewer lines?
Yes.
Okay, when it comes to doing sewer lines, we tend to share the material cost of that project. So that is approximately 50% of the cost. When you look at the material versus the sewage, it's about 40 to 50% of the cost is material. And we tend to say to the developer, we will provide the sewer pipes, the manholes, the ironmongery, and that's about 50%, 40 to 50% of the cost the NWC shares for sewer.
Okay, thank you for that. We have another question for you. How can we access the developers' guidelines? This person is not from Jamaica, but is still interested in reviewing the standards.
Okay, it used to be available on our website. It's not available now because it's under review. It used to be available on NEPA's website also, but we want to get it properly reviewed very quickly and up so that we can publish it at least on our website and on NEPA's website. So we hope to get that done before the end of the year.
Okay, we have another question for you. What is the expected timeline for review of applications?
The normal expected review time is 30 days.
30 days. Okay, great. I know persons usually ask this, is there enough water for all these developments that are happening, particularly in Kingston and St. Andrew?
I know that question tends to be in the context of our meteorological drought that we're facing. Now remember, our meteorological droughts don't occur every year. This one is one every 30 to 50 years. So yes, there is enough water when you look at the overall trends. But of course, if you're having a meteorological drought at this time, then you are going to have to do some level of conservation. But generally speaking, yes, there is water, especially in Kingston and St. Andrew. Of course, there are areas where we don't have the service available, and that shows up in the places where we have been endorsing and where we have not been endorsing. So we have to just tailor what is happening. If the source dries up, and if the source were to dry up for an extended number of years, then we would be in very serious trouble. I pray that this meteorological drought that we're facing really does break shortly. I really pray it does, and it doesn't go on beyond an extended period, because that would put our entire nation at risk, in jeopardy. So in general, looking at the trends, yes, there is water. At the moment, looking at our meteorological drought, we have to take it as it comes, examine what's happening, and then we have mitigation measures to assist the process.
For that, Mr. Bennett, I suppose we have nothing to worry about just yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. There's another, more so a comment. This person is saying, you know, maybe a bit outside of the main topic, but there are many open requests for quotations for development of desalination in Jamaica. This person is happy to support this. I don't know if you'd like to share your thought on desalination in Jamaica.
Okay, while desalination in principle is something which could work, I mean, the sea's out there, the water is there, and it's readily available, but every process produces waste, and that waste is super salt water, super concentrated salt water. And that super concentrated salt water has to be placed somewhere. And if that super concentrated salt waste that gets back into our environment, then it really does contaminate our entire ecosystem. If it gets into our lagoons, if it gets into our aquifers, if it gets into or right into our environment, then that waste poses a very serious challenge that I don't think we have examined thoroughly enough. Some places, I understand, they are putting that waste in holes in the ground just so that to get rid of it, yes, but it gets down in the ground, it gets into our aquifers, and it does contaminate our potable water supply. If it gets into our coastal areas where we have our fishes and so on that breed in our lagoons and so on, it does affect our breeding areas, and it does affect our major industries, affects our environment at many levels. So from that perspective, I really would not like to see desalination become widespread in Jamaica.
Okay, thank you for your thoughts, Mr. Bennett. We have a few more questions for you. Does NWC support one customer, say, using their own internal sewage system, and then another customer to convey their sewage to the central sewage system? And if so, how are the sewage fees charged? I suppose if these persons are neighbors.
Yes, normally, whenever we have central sewage systems, a lot of the central sewage systems came out of the fact that we used to use pits, septic pits, and we just throw the sewage in the ground and it soaks away into the ground. Now that sewage, which simply soaks away into the ground, does get into our water supply network eventually, and it can contaminate our wells, as has happened with a few of our wells in Kingston and St. Andrew that we have had to retire because of high nitrate levels and different things happening in them. So whenever we put in central sewage systems, the intent is that we will stop putting that sewage in the ground, stop putting it into our aquifers, so that we can now convey it to a central location where it can be treated and released at a satisfactory level back into the environment, where the contamination will be within prescribed limits, where we won't be throwing heavy sewage into our environment. Now, how are fees charged? There are standard fees with regard to sewage systems, where we have different fees. We have fees for, depending on what it is that you're doing, we have connection fees, we have processing fees to administer the process of connection. We have fees that require us to visit, account for visitations, different things that we have there. And once we have a sewer within 100 yards of a particular neighbor, then we are obliged to charge you sewage, especially if you can tap into that sewage system. So we encourage you, tap into the sewage system. It's not just because the NWC is being greedy. It's that we really don't want sewage to get into our environment in an unsatisfactory manner.
Okay, thank you for that. So that neighbor is encouraged to tap into our central sewer system because they will be charged nonetheless.
And very often it happens, yes.
Okay. Can a map with the public sewage lines be made available to engineering consultants?
The maps that we have are a work in progress, and they don't have detailed levels on them at the moment. So what we often will make available to persons is their particular area. We often try to get them the most accurate information in that particular area. So if you need information with regard to infrastructure, all you do is write to us, let us know what's available there, and we will where your development is, and we'll let you know what's available in that particular area. We prefer to do that because it the updating of the maps is in progress, and there are implications to when we publish a map that says this is there, it's not updated on time, and then developers make commitments based on that particular map that they see, and it does put us in a difficult light. So we prefer to deal with each particular case and give them the information for their particular circumstance.
Thank you for that. And I guess with that, can you remind everyone of your email address?
Okay, my email, I can type it in the chat, can I?
Sure.
I believe I can. If I can, hold on, please. Okay, I'll just type it in the chat here. My email address is ian.bennett@nwc.com.jn, and it's in the chat. Okay.
Awesome.
You can also, if you're making your applications, we also ask you to write to subdivision.unit@nwc.com.jm. Subdivision.unit. There we go. Okay.
Thank you for that. A couple more questions for you. What is a typical basis or the common issues that influence those red locations on the map where 50% of applications are not endorsed?
Usually it's lack of water supply or lack of infrastructure to support them. So places where we have no systems available, we can't give you any water because we have nothing available in that particular area. Or where we have very little infrastructure, you're putting up 100 houses and we only have a 1/2-inch pipe in that particular area, and the 4-inch pipe is very far away, or the bigger pipes are very far away. We may say we don't have infrastructure there. You might not be able to afford the cost to do all the development upgrades. You're doing 10 houses, you have a 1-inch pipe, you need hydrants, 4-inch pipe should be there, but there's only a 1-inch pipe there or a 1/2-inch pipe there, and you're looking at the nearest pipe of sufficient size 3, 4, 5 miles away, 5, 6 kilometers away. Then we tend to say inadequate infrastructure. We do say to developers, however, we're not averse to any initiatives which you might wish to put forward to us, or which you might wish to take up on your own volition with our endorsement, of course, to improve the infrastructure. So we are always open. Even though we say no, we are open if developers have ideas for improvement.
Great. Another question here. Does NWC have a plan to rehabilitate the aquifers in Kingston and St. Andrew?
That's a very interesting question. Rehabilitate the aquifers. Yes, we did a isotopic study a few years ago, and we have found some very interesting things. We find that most of our aquifers are charged by rainwater around the periphery of Kingston and St. Andrew, and we have found that the age of the water in the north of Kingston and St. Andrew is close to the age of the water at the coast. And what that tells us is that the water is not staying in the ground very long. It goes in the ground at the north and it runs off very quickly. So we are looking to put some plans together to engage all of the parties in the public water sector utility to ensure that we don't pave everywhere. We are paving everywhere with impermeable surfaces. We have to begin to open up those impermeable surfaces so that the water can get into that aquifer. Once the rainwater gets into the aquifer and we stop putting sewage into that aquifer along with other contaminants into the aquifer, then the aquifer will gradually over some years begin to be rehabilitated. And I believe if we begin to do this kind of thing now, it will also help us in the future. And I'm not talking a long time, I'm talking maybe within another 20 years. If we continue to not take care of our aquifers in Kingston and St. Andrew and environs, then maybe in another few years, we could be in trouble with contaminated water. So let us begin to think about these matters on a very serious basis. So developers, when you are putting in infrastructure, why are all the surfaces impermeable? Why not make some of the parking surfaces semi-permeable surfaces where once it rains, water can get down into the ground, it can get into the aquifer, and it will contribute to the preservation of that aquifer. Okay.
Thank you for that, Mr. Bennett. And even just to add to that, in Innswood St. Catherine, there's also a aquifer recharge system, well, man-made aquifer recharge system, which also helps to replenish the aquifer within that area as well. A few more for you. What percentage of Kingston and St. Andrew is sewered, and will Soapberry need to be upgraded to manage the sewerage?
Oh boy. Let's see if I can remember that percentage. If I remember correctly, I'm not so sure of the percentage, but I believe all of downtown Crossroads, I would say about maybe 30%, maybe if we're lucky, 40% of Kingston St. Andrew is sewered. And there are plans to do some upgrades to Soapberry. I'm not aware of the fullness of those plans as I speak to you now, but I'm certain that all our parties involved are looking at our demands. We are looking at where we are, and we're looking at what we need to do in the future. We're not using up everything in Soapberry as yet, so we still can put some more sewage into that system, but we have to really begin to get into the central sewer so that we put it at Soapberry rather than putting it into the ground.
Yes. How are you dealing with the misuse of water, wastage of water due to leaking pipes?
Okay, we have been looking at our NRW programs. There's a co-management program which has been implemented in Kingston and St. Andrew, and it has had significant impact on our systems. And that process of NRW has gone into St. Catherine and a few other areas. We intend to apply those techniques right across the island eventually, and we intend to reduce our NRW to manageable levels where we are not throwing away the precious commodity of our potable water.
Thank you for that, Mr. Bennett. Another question here, well, comment and a question. I know the Scientific Research Council has a patent for a storage to biogas system for residential use. Would a system like that still require NWC approval?
If the developer intends to operate that system, and it's not just that particular system, the NWC does not have to give its endorsement. We only endorse what we plan to operate and take over, right? So no, we would not, once it's on site or being operated by the developer or by the owners or by that particular stakeholder, NWC does not have to give its endorsement of it.
Okay, this person is asking, well, comment, points taken, Mr. Bennett. This person is referring to the desalination system. Mr. Miguel Hibbert, he will be happy to enlighten you and your team further on the current standards. And please note global references based on his website here, IDT Tech. So I'll share that with you.
Sure.
Right, and another here, you mentioned pipelines. Why are there pipes in parts of St. Catherine where there's no water for over 40 years, yet there's still water bills being sent?
Well, I'm certain that we're trying to work on that from an operational standpoint, where some of our systems were old parish council systems, especially in St. Catherine. They were old parish council systems that no longer operate. We took them over. The sources have dried up, some of them. The pipelines are very old. They no longer are able to carry the water that we need. So the NWC needs to get in there eventually and begin to rehabilitate some of those systems and see if we can get back water supply into those areas. We have done so with Kitson Town a few years ago, where there were old pipes there. We rehabbed the whole system, trying to get it up. And we're doing that in some other areas now to try and get potable water into those communities.
Thank you for that, Mr. Bennett. I think just another question. Could you just reiterate what you mentioned about bulk meters versus individual meters?
Ooh, I said a mouthful. When you want individual meters, speak to us. Tell us what it is that you would like to do. Show us the plans of how you intend to feed your individual customers. Try to ensure that you consider operating and maintaining those individual pipes. Suppose you have 100 half-inch pipes in a small bundle, a circular bundle. How do you get to the pipe in the middle to repair it when it bursts? If you have pipes spread out in an area, 100 pipes, individual half-inch pipes, spread out in an area, how do you walk through and inspect those pipes without stepping on them? How do you ensure that you're able to get into one of those pipes which may burst over time to repair it? Those are some of the things I would like us to consider when we're coming up with our design for individual metering inside our communities. How do you get those pipes from our meters to the customers in a way where it can deliver the water efficiently and it is able to be operated and maintained in an efficient manner?
Great.
I hope that answers that comment.
I hope so too. This person is asking you just to repeat the specifics surrounding the 60% occupancy requirement for water supply.
All right. We prefer 60% occupancy, meaning that water is being utilized, potable water is being utilized, and sewage, if sewage services are at that particular development, sewage is being discharged. That allows the old water in the pipes to be used and replaced. It's no longer old water. It gets replaced by new water coming in all the time. And then when sewage is discharged, it allows enough water to be inside those sewage pipes to move the solid matter out. If we don't do that, then the waste will stay in the pipes and become hardened, and that can cause problems for us. Security is also another issue. When people live in the community, it puts an additional level of security on the hydrants and the other infrastructure which might be there. Theft won't become as much of an issue if persons live there. Okay, I hope that helps to answer that question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Bennett. Another question for you. When there is no approval and the developer continues to build, what happens next? Is it that customers will suffer from the little to no water?
Well,
what does NWC do with that?
This is where I hope developers will take stock very, very seriously. If you have no approval and you continue to build, it's your responsibility. You must not do that. That must not be done. You know you have no approval. You have not sought any approval. You have not gone after any approval. You have just done your thing, and have you lied to your customers who have bought the houses? Have you told them that water supply will be available to you? What have you done? Not having an approval, yet at the same time, you expect to get service for something which is not approved. I don't think we should do that. I think we should be honest. We should be upfront. We should be straight. I'll even go as far as saying we should be righteous in our business conduct. And let us not deceive persons. Let us deal with things straight up front so that we'll understand. Let us go get the approvals, what are necessary, and get all the endorsements necessary so that we can have a smooth case. Very, very often, the NWC does go in and try to assist the process. Very often, too, we don't have the service available. Okay, we don't have water up there. Now, if we don't have water up there, we can do nothing. So it depends. Let us not do that. Let us try to ensure that whenever we are doing our developments, we ensure that we get the necessary approvals, not just water, but for all the respective services that we intend to need to supply the customers, those homeowners, because they're spending top dollar for their homes. we should deliver the services to make them very comfortable. Okay, and the approvals necessary should be sought so that they can be made comfortable, because they are spending their money for a particular home. And I think it's our obligation to make sure that we seek those approvals necessary. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I think we've heard you loud and clear. Another one for you. When a developer has completed the construction of a new development and the stipulated occupancy of residential units are met, the same 60%, what is the process for taking over from NWC to be done? Is there a timeline? Do you go back into the development prior to the takeover to ensure that the sewerage system is constructed properly?
Okay, the normal process demands that once we connect you with a bulk meter, if it's not, once we agree that we're going to give you a service lot development with below the minimum occupancy levels, we may choose to give you 1 meter that you're responsible for everything within the development. What we are supposed to do is on an annual basis, we're supposed to inspect your development to see how the occupancy levels are going. If before a particular year is up, the occupancy levels go up, then we do go back into the subdivision. We do inspect the systems to ensure that they're operating well. For a sewage system, once the sewage system is up and running, we need a certain amount of volume to test them. We have to provide 3 consecutive months of good effluent quality readings to provide that to NEPA, to ensure that NEPA endorses that that particular sewage facility is operating, sewage treatment facility is operating up to standard before we take it over. We also ask that all easements and titles and that kind of thing be handed over to us prior to us taking it over. Okay.
Can you repeat the timeline for that, or estimated timeline?
Well, the normal time to go in, we normally ask once a developer reaches 60% and he says he's ready, we ask that the developer comes in, makes his applications for all of the customers in there. And remember, he would have water in his name. So we ask that he makes all the applications in there to us, make it all in one go. It's normally about 10 working days or thereabouts to approve all of that. And then we go in, we install all the meters, ensure everything is in place. And then we go in, once we go in, all the meters are installed. Then we do a paper transfer from the developer to the customer. The normal time is 10 working days to get that part of the process approved and sorted out.
Okay, great. What is NWC's stance on private wastewater and potable water treatment plants?
Operate them and do them well. If it is that you have your license, we are simply a service provider. We are a primary service provider, but not the only service provider. We often ask that if persons are getting into the water business, we ask that you do it properly. Do not set up a water business and then a year down the road you decide to abandon it because the business becomes difficult. We ask that you look at all that you're doing, count the cost of establishing that business, and then understand that water supply is a long-term thing. Water supply is not a 1-year or 2-year business. Water supply is a lifetime business where once people live within that development or set up developments and you're providing water to them, then it is for a lifetime. You can't expect to supply water for a year and then say, I can't be bothered with the business because the business becomes hard or it's challenging. Collection is difficult. The bills are difficult. The process is difficult. And then you abandon the people. I don't think you should do that. You should understand that that water and sewage business is a lifetime business and you should go into it with that in mind. I hope that answered that question.
I believe it has. I believe it has. I think we have another question. How do you know, well, since NWC is not a regulator, how do you ensure that persons actually install the requisite equipment to ensure pressure and water delivery to the second floor?
All right, if it is that the National Water Commission is going to take over operation or we are the providers of the service to that particular development, then we do inspections. We look at the engineering reports before construction starts at the approval stage. We ensure that your design is within satisfactory limits. We ensure that your processes that you intend to supply water to that particular housing development is within satisfactory parameters. And then on construction, we do inspection to ensure that it is installed. And before we take it over, we do a final inspection to ensure that all that you say you're going to install is installed and ready for operation. And then and only then we take it over.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Bennett. I don't see, oh, I just saw another question pop up here. Oh, this person's asking, where can I do a course on water and sewage management? I believe UTEC has one.
UTEC has a course on that, yes.
Yeah, it's for operators of water and sewage, but sewer systems, sewage plants.
UTEC has a course on this. They have varied courses that they do, and UTEC also is trying to do courses at different levels. They have courses for plumbers, they have courses for engineers, and they have courses for many of them in between. So they're trying to adapt their course requirements for the Jamaican sector, the water sector. So you can go to UTEC, speak to their different offices, and then they will tell you what it is that they offer at the level you wish to study.
Great, thank you for that, Mr. Bennett. I don't see any more questions or any raised hands. I'll allow Janelle to close us off.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett, for that informative and knowledgeable presentation. You highlighted a lot of the requirements that NWC needs for their potable water, sewage, and subdivision development application process. You spoke to the quality of the submissions needed, the fact that you need site plans, engineering reports, suitable location and maps and drawings. You highlighted some of the issues that are faced, such as the need for detailed drawings, detailed designs, implications of poor occupancy. You also provided information on the improvements to the development process and the developer's manual and some of the development trends. So I just want to personally say thank you once again for your presentation. Thank you to everybody who came out this morning to listen. And I just want to remind you all that JIE aims to promote the practice and the science of engineering. And that's why it's on this premise that the Developers Forum series for 2023 has taken place, and so far it has been a fruitful series. And the aim of this series is just to provide guidance to the development process to further the knowledge of the participants of funding, permits, policies, and standards, and to aid in the applicants in planning and executing the developments and infrastructure projects appropriately and successfully. So the series continues on March 23rd with the building design, wind and earthquake loads, and ends on March 30th with presentation on PV systems, optimal designs and real costs, as well as the implications of the development orders on the new Kingston and the St. Andrew landscape. So once again, thank you all for coming out. Have a good morning. Enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you again, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you.